everyone might want to, everyone should probably put their mic on. I think they're probably off for now. Good morning and welcome to the Historic Preservation Advisory Board meeting of November 21st. I'll ask first for the call to order, which is the roll call of the members.
Good morning. James Daudet.
Here.
Don Good.
Here.
David Perry.
Here.
Beth Magnan. Here. Lucille Ponte.
Here.
Stephen Valdez.
Likewise.
Thank you. I also, if you don't mind, have a proclamation I'd like to read really quickly after we finish the pledge, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we'll stand, please, for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And then is our next meeting still going to be December 26th? I think there was some discussion about whether or not that was still going to be the date for our next meeting because of the holiday.
I will double check the records
Okay.
and send everybody out an affirmative answer this evening.
Okay, thank you so much.
No problem.
So currently it is scheduled for December 26, 2024, but that may change because of the holiday. All right, this is our time period for public comments. Anyone wishing to address the Historic Preservation Advisory Board on any subject may do so at the appropriate time during the meeting, which is now. Those who choose to speak must state their name for the record. Each person will be allowed to speak up to a maximum of 3 minutes. Do we have anyone here for public comment? A second call for public comment. Third call for public comment. All right, we will not be having public comment. All right, approval of the minutes. Everyone has received the minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, anyone want to make at this point?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. I second it.
All right, all in favor of approval of the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All right, the ayes have it.
Is everybody's mics on as well? Yeah.
I turn mine on and off. I'm assuming.
Do you want us to take that vote again? Will that make that easier for you?
No,
Okay.
that's fine. I got it. Motion carried unanimously.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
And then if you guys don't mind me, yep.
Excuse me, my light isn't on, so I can't tell. Can you?
It looks like it's not lit up.
You're not on.
No, that's your red nails, not the.
Well, Beth, there's another one over there. Is that one working over there, Jim? Just to see, and then if it is, we
This
can
one's
just
working,
check.
yes.
See, okay.
You want to just switch spots?
Yeah, but make it
Thank you
easier.
so much.
Save us a little. Now, before we get into the certificates of appropriateness, we've had a request from Kelly Gaylord, who's the president of the Punta Gorda Historic Mural Society. She has a very brief presentation about the replacement of a mural, and I want to get the consensus of the board members that she be allowed to go first so that we can have a detailed discussion of the certificates of appropriateness.
I don't
Anyone
have a problem.
have any?
I think she has a proclamation to read.
Oh, the proclamation, sorry about that. And then
It's
after that, we'll have Kelly come up because she has a scheduling conflict.
And I'll be quick as well.
All right, go ahead, sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you guys so much for giving me a moment. November is Board Member Appreciation Month, and Council on November 6th did pass a proclamation, so I'm just going to read that for you guys now. Whereas local governments provide the most access to decision-making processes that directly impact the daily lives of their citizens, and the City of Punta Gorda's residents actively participate in these decisions through the attendance of meetings or provision of input, without which government cannot be of the people, by the people, and for the people. And whereas many dedicated citizens seek greater opportunities to influence their community today and in the future by serving on city boards. As board members, they have the opportunity to make decisions regarding the application of city codes, as well as provide advice to the city council regarding legislative matters. And whereas the city currently has 11 boards with 71 seats for residents to fill in order to help shape the future of their community. These board members generously volunteer their time to fulfill the duties of each board, sharing their experience and acting with integrity in their deliberations. And whereas board members report feeling more knowledgeable about municipal projects, more connected to their neighbors and city staff, and more fulfilled for their contributing to a strong and diverse community through their service on the city's advisory boards. Now therefore, the City Council of the City of Punta Gorda, Florida does hereby declare November 2024 to be Board Member Appreciation Month and urges citizens to volunteer for advisory boards, attend public meetings, and stay updated on city business by reviewing board agendas and notices posted to the city website. Passed and duly adopted this 6th day of November 2024. So thank you all for everything that you do. All of that to say thank you. We appreciate what you guys do for us.
Thank you so much. All right. Kelly Gaylord would come forward from the Punta Gorda Historic Mural Society.
Good morning, Kelly Gaylord, President of the Punta Gorda Historic Mural Society, here to present another mural that we're replacing. This is our Developing Minds and Bodies mural at the Cooper Street Center. This is what it looks like now, not in really good shape. It was painted in 2006. Unfortunately, in 2009, just 3 years later, it began having problems. Over the years, they figured out that it was because the walls were not prepped properly after repairs were done after Hurricane Charlie, so the entire building suffered from the problems. So it did continue to deteriorate. There was stucco leakage, the paint faded and is now peeling. We also have multiple cracks. Both of those walls were skimmed out over the block, and as we've seen with other murals across the city, whenever you do that, you get cracking along the block lines. And the city is planning to repair the walls and repaint the building in the next several months. But unfortunately, whenever we see those kinds of cracks, they come back. So what we're proposing as a replacement is that we will actually do it on aluminum panels. But before I talked about that, I'll just mention these are the sketches. There will be 3 12 by 4 foot panels, one on, and we'll see in a minute where they're going to be located. We worked extensively over the past 3 months with the Community Engagement Committee to determine the content and also the reference photos to be used. We passed that, and also the layout, and passed that on to the artist, and he created these renderings. We also recently shared that with the community on November 17th, this past Sunday. So we were able to, the original mural, if we go back a second, you see that it's very large, the figures are very large. It's meant to be seen from a distance. In this particular setting, you can get very close to the mural. So we decided to actually increase the content and allow folks to get closer, and you see there's words on it and those kinds of things. Around the borders of the bottom 2 panels are all the groups and clubs that were created from the center over the years, and along the bottom is a quote from one of the original directors that talks about basically the essence of the center. So it's great that we're going to be able to feature those things along with the logo. What it's going to look like on the building is this. The building will hopefully be painted a lighter color. That's yet to be determined. And but this mural will look good on whatever color they decide, because it's actually on panels. So it will be on these aluminum panels. We have decided to do all future murals on panels. They've now survived 4 hurricanes, and in some cases survived, and the buildings have not. So the murals do well on the aluminum panels. It also gives us the flexibility to remove them if anything has to be done to the walls. So we save the murals. So we're going to stay off the problematic wall and reproduce this mural on 3 panels. Any questions? We have to raise money, of course, so it's about $34,000. So it'll be a while before they happen.
Questions or comments from any of the board members? All right, thank you very
Great.
much, Kelly.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on now to the certificates of appropriateness.
Good morning, Madam Chair. Lisa Hannon, Planning Director. You guys never see me here because it's usually another staff member, but we have lost a couple of staff members, and tomorrow's my last day. Before we get into our certificate of appropriateness, based on the city council meeting yesterday, we have the same certificate of appropriatenesses for 111 Chastine and 359 Chastine have also submitted a request to have both structures delisted or deregistered from the local register district. How the ordinance was written and adopted when the city adopted the local register district states that property owners can ask to be added or removed from the list by virtue of a resolution approved by city council. It inadvertently, I wasn't part of writing that, but it inadvertently did not have a step in there to come to the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. At the council meeting yesterday, they tabled both of those agenda items until the December 4th city council agenda with a request that these items be brought up at the Historic Preservation Advisory Board meeting today. It would be up to you and the board if you wish to put the deregistration request on, as well as the certificate of appropriateness for the demolition permits.
Be putting it on the December meeting?
No, on today's meeting.
Okay. Any comments from the members of the board? I mean, this is kind of a last-minute change.
Yes, ma'am, and I apologize, but we
Give
were
us much
directed by
opportunity.
city council yesterday to make that request, and it would be a recommendation. It wouldn't be a final decision by HPAB. It would just be your recommendation. Then it gets forwarded to the city council for their final decision whether to leave them on the register or grant the request to have them delisted.
Don?
If I may, I had issue because I thought it was backwards, right? So, that's why it came back. But I've got other questions. And one is the criteria for structures being contributing and being delisted. Because in the past year, and I've asked Mitchell Austin a year ago, I asked the city manager in the past couple of weeks, I talked with Lisa, and I don't know what the criteria was used to put structures on and take some off. And I got a letter from the city, my house was on, and then it was off. And I just wanted clarification what that criteria was. Did it bother me being off? Not necessarily. There's a plus to that. The plus is you don't need to come for a CA like I did after Ian for my roof, because I was on then, I'm off now. And then there's other considerations too. If you're on, you're not subject to the 50-50 rule. If you're off, you are, is my understanding. So
That's
for
correct.
some people, they want to be off because of maybe insurance reasons or whatever, or demolition permits, which, by the way, all we can do is recommend approval or disapproval to council about a demo permit. That's the way it used to be done. And so I was questioning, because this is going to come up a lot as we move forward in this year. And so I want a clarification of those two issues. I'm not necessarily saying that I'm against people asking for demo permits. I just want to know what our criteria is in the first place.
Other comments? Jim?
I'd like to reinforce what Don has just said. I don't feel like I have a basis for making an informed decision based on the criteria that I could fairly vote one way or the other. Not that I'm for or against any position, but I would like to understand how we should be evaluating these things so we can be consistent.
Steve wants to comment as well? Oh, good.
I'm not so much concerned with the demolition things coming in. We got flooded out for the first and second time. This is the beginning of climactic change in this area. I'm more concerned with if you take away that historic building, what then is the role of the property? Must it be maintained as a historic architecture on the new building, or are we going to open it up to developers? There's a lot of...
So if I may, again, Lisa Hannon, Planning Director, and our new zoning official, Rachel Berry, can add in on, we have land development regulations in which there are development standards and architectural provisions that have to be met based on the zoning classification that property is in. We cannot prohibit the property being purchased by a developer. However, that developer has to meet all of the development standards and all the architectural provisions that are in the land development regulations.
So what you're saying then even if the historic, quote, historic, whether it's 1930, whatever, if that is gone, whatever the new structure will have to maintain architecturally
It will-
similar with the neighborhood, et cetera.
There are several different architectural styles that are listed and that are permitted, and different building types that are permitted per zoning classification and zoning district. So yes.
So it would,
It can't
would
say,
still
it
main-
can't say it will, you can't say if they're taking down a folk Victorian that they have to put a folk Victorian back in. However, there are a list of approved architectural styles that go along with that zoning classification for that property.
in order to keep the integrity of the
And,
quote,
or, of the
historic section.
district, of the traditional Punta Gorda district in our form-based code. That is correct.
Well, I'm going to agree with some of the other members here. This is kind of coming out of nowhere. We're literally being told right now that we should be making a big decision about whether something is on or off the, and we don't have criteria. We don't have any information provided to us in our packet.
Correct.
None of that information has been provided to the public who is here in this meeting. So at this point in time, we can't really make a decision because we don't have any information. And I want to make an uninformed decision without knowing maybe the unintentional consequences of that decision.
Okay.
So is it appropriate to make a motion that we table this?
If
Until we
someone
get
would
those
like to make
guidelines?
that motion?
I'll
Or
make
you
such-
can, that or, it could be consensus
Okay.
that you do
Okay.
not, that you do not wish to add these two
Yeah.
items to the agenda. And that is entirely your choice.
If I may, Jim, today, do we want to, in making the decision that we're not going to address this, we're foregoing our ability to provide input on this decision, do we want to make a recommendation, or can we make a recommendation to City Council that we don't have the information to fairly judge this? We think it's an important issue. We would like to have input on the decision, as is the responsibility of this board. So we would like them to give us the opportunity at our next meeting to address this, and then request that they delay their consideration of our input until we have had the opportunity to provide informed input.
And perhaps including the criteria by which we should make that decision, because we don't really have any of that information. So does somebody want to form that into a, Jim, if you could slightly summarize that into a motion, then we could have people act. As the chair, I can't make a motion, so I would have to ask.
I think we just need consensus,
Do we-
correct?
You-
Yeah.
Don?
If I may, the last thing I think any of us want to do is to infringe on people's property at a time when it, it is horribly hard. It's your biggest asset. I get that. What I think my point is that, number one, this was backwards. It should come before us first. So that's the one thing that, that I'm glad this happened. The second thing, though, is the criteria. Because when they sent out the letters last year, you could, when they say you're off the list, no criteria was given. If you disagree with that, talk to somebody about it. The other letters were you're now on the list, which I have a friend who got one of those, with a building the same age as mine, and we don't know why she's on the list. So at the time, homeowners were not even thinking about what does this do, how does this affect my decision-making process, right? As I said before, some people that want to save their homes, the 50-50 rule, if they're on the list, helps them do that. For others that do not want to save their home and they're on contributing structure list, then you have to go through this process. So if we could, and I don't know how fast, I've been trying for a year to find out the criteria. So in my mind, if you were taken off the list in the past year, and now you're aware of the consequences of that, and if you want to be on the list, maybe we should go in and reinstate those people, the ones that want to be back on the contributing structure list. Because we don't know what criteria was used to take them off the contributing structure list. So instead of stopping everybody, that was my thoughts, is that anyone, and we have to make this public and get information out there, if your home was taken off and you want it back on because you want to avail yourself to the 50-50 rule, let's do this and tell them how to do it. Then we're not, and other people that, are on, don't know why they're on, but they don't want to be on, they could do the same thing, saying, I don't know how I got on it, but I want off. And at least we have an update with that, and then, you know, we can address these issues, and then follow through at a future date, you know, start working now to find out what is the criteria. Because I don't want to hold people up for months. That's just my thoughts on it.
Well, I think, if I'm correctly summarizing it, we do have concerns about this coming to us without any information. We can't make an informed decision without it. There's a need for the criteria to be clear, so that we know what the standards are for making the decision. In addition, there should be an opportunity for homeowners to make a decision now about whether they want to be on or off the list. That's kind of outside of our purview, I think, but on or off the list. And then we also would want the city council to come back to us before they make these decisions in order to give us a chance to give them feedback and input once we know what the criteria are. Is that pretty
It is,
clear?
but the one thing I do want to interject is I assumed, and of course, when you make assumptions, you know what that means. I had assumed that this board, which I wasn't on, when all of this discussions were going on about homes coming on and homes coming off, I made the assumption that this board had addressed that they'd had information come to them, and that it was part of a consensus of the board that, yeah, we understand this and we agree with it. So I guess that didn't happen.
It may have happened with previous boards, Don.
It could have, I
So
don't know.
It's hard to know, but
Yeah.
yeah. So I guess that is the consensus of it. If any other additions people want to make, or... Now, does
Okay.
this impact whether or not these certificates of appropriateness for
No,
Chastain can
no,
even
it
be
does not.
reviewed?
They are a separate application and a separate request. So if you would like, we can move forward with those.
Okay, is everyone, all right, let's move forward.
The first one is CA 27-2024, 359 Chastain Street for the demolition application. City staff put together a memo. It proposes demolishing the primary structure and all accessory structures, removing the concrete slab at 359 Chastain Street. It was built in circa 1951 as a mid-century modern architectural style typical of Punta Gorda in the post-World War II period. The property is listed on the Florida Master Site File. However, the structure was deemed ineligible for the National Register and was to be considered independently, and the structure was deemed ineligible for a local register of important sites. Although the property has not been deemed unsafe by an engineer, the property owner stated the structure has flooded numerous times. The required engineered report has not been submitted. However, a professional opinion letter produced by Drum Engineering Corporation was submitted. The professional letter recommends that the structure be demolished and the property redeveloped to meet the current flood and wind speed requirements set forth via FEMA and the Florida Building Code. And as it exists, the original structure does remain there. The location of the structure is outside the designated historic district. City staff does recommend approval of the certificate of appropriateness for the proposed demolition at the single-family home at 359 Chastain Street.
Comments or questions?
I'd move approval of it.
Well,
I'm sorry.
let's see if there's any comments or questions. I have a couple of questions. One is that there's supposed to be a required engineer's report. Why is this coming to us if that required report has not been? I see there's an opinion letter. That opinion letter is the exact same opinion letter being used for 111 Chastain Street.
Yes, ma'am.
And it actually has the same typos in it, so it's clearly the same thing with a different address on it. And one of my concerns is the importance of having an independent analysis done by an engineer, so again, we can make an informed decision. It's hard to do that when someone says, I'm not going to give you a structural analysis, I'm going to give you an opinion, and that opinion is kind of based on things said by the homeowner, but I'm not going to, it's sort of this gray area. So first of all, why is this coming to us when there isn't a structural analysis?
Staff was directed to accept the applications as they were submitted to help expedite the process.
Well, I mean, it's in the city ordinance, right, that you're supposed to be providing this?
I cannot find it in the city ordinance, actually. I've
Well,
been looking,
there's
so.
actually-
But it is in the requirement of the application. It
Right.
states on the application that a structural engineer report is required. Staff was directed to accept these and move them forward to
It's under section
HPAB.
16.2, 16.2E1D. Okay, so it's basically in there, you're supposed to have it, excuse me, wrong section. But it is in the section, I had to look it up myself. 16.3C8, structural engineer's analysis of the structure. It's in there. We don't have it, so why is this coming to us?
Again, staff was directed to move these forward as they were submitted. to help expedite the process for the property owners.
Well, my opinion personally is that we don't have a completed application. And from what I can see, even from the letter from the homeowner, some of this isn't flood damage. He talks about termite damage, which isn't from the hurricane. He's talking about old electrical, which probably existed clearly before there was a hurricane. So I'm a little bit concerned we're having all these things coming at us that don't have the requirements that are necessary for an application. And then there's a lot of gray area about whether or not this has got to do with the floods or not. And then these kind of canned opinion letters that say the same thing but don't really give us much to go on.
And it is the board's prerogative, should they wish to deny this or to reject the request and say it's insufficient and you're going to require what is required by code in there. That's your prerogative. The application is before you for action. So again, like I stated, staff was directed to accept these applications as submitted and to move them forward.
I agree with the chair. I understand what you're saying, because my inclination was go ahead and let this move forward, but we're going to be seeing a lot of these.
Yes.
And if we are going to waive this, we got a problem, because now even though these things are supposed to be looked at separately, what we'll be doing is going to, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
We've got to be
absolutely.
fair. I agree with the chair.
I mean, the concern is we're going to set a precedent here so that the next folks that come through say, well, you didn't require a structural analysis from them, so why are you, we've got to treat all the homeowners in the community the same and all the properties the same. And then we've got one where it's the same opinion letter, and one the city is saying, go ahead with the demolition, and the other they're saying not, and it's the exact same letter. So, I mean, this is not really making kind of the independent analysis that's important for us to make a valued decision. Beth, and then Dawn.
I have a question. Is it the reason they don't have an engineer's report? Is it a cost prohibitive, the engineer's report?
I
Do
can
we know?
add, we have a representative for the homeowner, for both homeowners here, if you would like to ask them. They're in the audience. If the lady from, if you can make sure I don't know, does that mic work?
Hello. Okay, sorry.
If you can just state your name for the record, please.
It's Diane Riccardi, and I am for 359 Chastine. That's my son's house, and it has flooded 2 times, 2 feet the first time, 3 feet the second time, and he just can't afford to put it back together. He just cannot afford to do that. So his goal is to demolish it, and it was cost prohibitive. You can't even get an engineer out there. We tried all we could do to get an engineer out there for both of these properties, but I'll just focus on the 359. So our hands were kind of tied, but we wanted to get in front of this board as soon as possible. And I agree with you where this is what we wanted to do first, not to remove from the designation, because we thought if we couldn't get this, let's try getting it removed from the designation. We didn't know the council meeting was going to be the day before this meeting, because we were told it wouldn't be heard before the council for a month. So that's why we kind of did it a little backwards. So, I mean, his goal, he loves that area. He can't live there anymore. He loves it. He can't afford to fix it. And it doesn't make sense for him to fix it for the possibility of it happening again. So that's why we tried to do the best we could. His goal is to rebuild. He loves the area, but he can't. I mean, he had to move out of state because that's where he had another place to stay. So that's the reason why he wants to demo it. He would not like to have to keep up the maintenance of the property. Right now, there's no air conditioning. The house is just there, and I think over time it would be better to, just have that vacant property and build someday using the requirements of the city and making it fit into the neighborhood, because there's some really nice houses in that neighborhood. So that's his, that's for the 359 Chastine.
Does he have flood insurance or insurance on
He
the
couldn't get
property?
flood insurance, it was like $15,000, and he just couldn't afford it, so no. He didn't have flood insurance, and he couldn't get homeowner's insurance because he didn't have flood insurance. So he was taking a risk in, you know, seeing how downtown hasn't flooded, and his area was pretty good. It's on the corner of Chastain and Olympia, and there's really good drainage there, but nothing could withstand these two storms. So, I mean, that's what he wants to do, and, you know, we would appreciate it if you would agree to let him demo with that. Like I said, his goal is to rebuild. That was for 359. I can talk about 111 Chastain if you'd like me to.
We'll take them one at a time.
Okay.
Other questions or comments, folks?
So, David Perry for the record, so if we disapproved this, does that then put them in a 45-day delay? That's the worst-case scenario?
Worst case you can do, well, since it's outside the district, yes, 45 days,
Okay, so all we're doing is delaying the inevitable by 45 days.
correct.
Well, it's, council, it could go back in front of council on December 4th. We can
For a-
deny the demo, and it could be then go to council, HPAB denied it, what do you want to do?
Correct.
Correct?
Well, that, I mean, they can appeal HPAB's decision to city council, or they can ask for the deregistration to come back, and if it's deregistered, then it's a moot point.
One more thing, and it's going to complicate everything, but it caught me. And that is, when I was watching a council meeting, I think it wasn't the last council meeting, the one before, you had the director of the building department there. And I do know that there's some people that I know, that they wanted to move forward with their insurance money and fix the problems. But then they were required to have an engineering report about, is the structure, unlike if it's concrete on slab, has it moved, has it shifted? And I think that's still going on. And if you have insurance, they're going to have to pay for that structural engineer's report. And I thought the building director said that ran about $1,000, whatever. On top of it, though, the permitting for this stuff, if I got him correctly, they're going to bundle this stuff up so that you don't have to keep going back and back and back for different permits for what you're doing at the home.
Depending on what type of
Of work,
repairs
okay.
and type of work it is.
Okay.
They have expedited permits to repair, and especially if it's all interior. If it's any exterior, it still requires a certificate of appropriateness application. And again, it's just, again, for the engineer report on the repairs, it's going to depend upon the type of repairs that are being proposed.
Other questions or comments, folks? Jim Jordan.
I empathize with the property owner, and I think in isolation, the board would make a different decision potentially than when we're considering. When I look at it, I think we have to consider the population of all properties that are in the situation that your son's property is in, and say if we make a decision today to allow demolition, are we then going to, by precedent, be setting an example that other people in the same situation are going to come to us, and we lose a population of properties that we may or may not want to lose, but we need to be aware of the implications of losing that group of properties, whether or not we look at them and say they're not viable and it's not, you know, it's not sustainable for the property owner, or whether we say they are an important thing in the community and we need to set some guidelines as far as where we draw the line in terms of economic stress and all of the considerations.
Other comments? All right, so does someone want to make a motion, then we can vote on it. I can't make a motion as the chair, so someone else has to make a motion, whether or not to approve the,
I make a motion that we, I would like to actually delay the decision rather than deny it, but I think that we might be better off denying it.
or just, I would make a motion about whether or not to approve is what we do.
I'd make a motion that we deny the request
To demolish the property?
to demolish the property.
Okay. Do we have a second? Anyone want to second it?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay. Any discussion, further discussion of the motion?
Well, the way I look at it, David Perry for the record, if we deny this, I think they just have 45 days and they can go and demolish it anyway. So what are we effectively doing other than delaying the inevitable? And might as well allow the building to come down for the good of the community. And so I would do a motion to approve the request.
We already have a motion on this, we can't.
Yeah,
so we
yeah,
can
so-
vote for or against it.
So I'm not gonna vote for it because of that.
My only other thought on this is I'm sort of in agreement with Jim, which is we are setting precedent, folks.
Yeah.
So if we allow this to go forward without a structural analysis, we are going to get lots of other ones, and it's going to be a lot harder decision to make. And it is required, as I've read, by the ordinance. So I'm going to be guided by what the law is telling us to do, which is that we're supposed to have a structural analysis. And although it may be difficult to get an engineer, then you may have to wait until you can get an engineer or go and find someone. But the problem is that we are bound by the law. We don't get to make ad hoc decisions about what we would like to have happen. So I think it's very important that we follow the law, but that is our role here. So I think we should keep that in mind because, as Jim Daudet points out, there's going to be lots more of these coming through, and we can't say, well, you have to have an analysis, but you don't, and then we're picking and choosing, and we're showing some kind of favoritism, which would not be appropriate. All right, so a vote on, okay.
Just really quickly, you guys are able to move to table this with the condition of the applicant coming back with that independent engineer. You do not have to deny or approve this at this time. You are at liberty to say, these are our
Correct.
conditions. Once you can meet them, we'll reconvene to hear this again.
All right, does someone want to make that motion to table?
I
You
make
can
a
with-
I make
you
a
can-
motion then to table the discussion until we get the information.
Well, you have a motion on the table, you can withdraw your first.
Withdraw it, Jim, if you would like.
I make a motion to withdraw my first motion.
Okay.
All in favor of withdrawal?
Aye.
Can I make another comment? I don't know if I'm allowed to or not.
I think at this point, we'll probably allow at least,
Yep.
we're
I mean,
going to
I
want to
just
have
kind of
people
feel
air their
like,
concerns.
you said there's other houses that are going to be in this same boat. I mean, I feel like, should he board up the house? I mean, that's going to look horrible, you know? I mean, I think having the house demoed is a much better idea than saying, okay, I can't do anything, I got to wait, I don't know how long the council's going to take, I don't know how long the board's going to take, how long am I going to get this structural engineer? He just puts boards up on the windows. I mean, I just kind of feel like, I kind of feel like the better decision is just to let him demo it, get it done, and move on. I mean, I think it would look worse, and if you have other houses that are going to be in the same boat, I don't think you want all these houses boarded up. I think you want to be able to allow them to do what they want to do with that property. I mean, I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Well, what motion is on the table now, so to speak? Because
There isn't, because he just
All
withdrew.
right, he withdrew it, so does someone want to make a motion that Jim was suggesting earlier?
I make a motion, we table the decision until we get an engineer's report and criteria are established for that provide us with the ability to make the decision on a consistent basis going forward.
Okay, and would someone want to second that motion? If we don't second the motion will die, so just be aware of that.
I don't disagree with the motion. The particular part at the end about the criteria, I think it's going to take us longer to get those answers for criteria. I do agree with the chair that the rule is to have an engineer's report, a structural engineer's report. And I think this is going to come up, and we need to have that report so that we can fairly make decisions for everyone that's going to come before us. And there will be a lot of people coming before us. This isn't like something that's just going to be an anomaly once this year. This is going to be coming for us a lot. And so just to take away from that, and I'll finish later, but so the motion, an amended motion, removing the criteria part of it, I would second. So the motion that we're not going to approve this until we get an engineer's report, I'll second that. But without the attachment of criteria, because I don't think we're going to have time to actually figure out what the criteria is at this point.
Just, is the house condemned and not livable?
Not at this time, he can't live there.
I mean, is that the purview of an engineer's report?
I'm not sure what.
No, but the house is not condemned, and as far as I know, it is not, okay, so I'm gonna go back to Charlie 20 years ago. The building department would come by and tell you if your house was condemned, which means you had to tear it down, you didn't have any choice. Or if it was uninhabitable, which means you can't live there, but that's not permission to tear it down. You have the opportunity to rebuild it if you want to, but to a certain standard. I'm assuming that that's the same now, but I don't know.
Lisa Hannon, Planning Director for the record. Based on my conversations with our building official, Ron Kahowitz, that is correct. We don't have any buildings that have been condemned. There are several buildings and structures that are uninhabitable, but that does not mean they are structurally unsafe or unsound. It just means they cannot be lived in at this time.
So do we want to, Beth, go ahead. Beth,
I have a
back.
question for Lisa Hannon. Does the building department have engineers, structural engineers? Do we
No,
have
ma'am.
structural engineers on staff?
No, ma'am, we
We
do
do
not
not.
have structural engineers. I mean, the building official is, and our inspectors, depending on what type of inspectors they are, can determine if it would be structurally unsound by looking at it, but they are not independent structural engineers where we will go out and do a structural engineer report on premises.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, do you want to amend your motion?
I would make a motion to amend my motion to eliminate the criteria aspect of it. So the motion is simply to table the decision until we receive the engineering report.
And I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No, opposed.
So we've got 2 opposed and 4 in favor, is that correct? Okay, then the motion does pass.
Steve Valdez. May I ask a question?
Me?
It seems our criteria for this whole thing is kind of willy-nilly when one house can have one thing, the other house, and do we even have the basis for conducting what's going to be an ongoing every year now that we've had a climactic change, you know, which seems to be going on. I don't think this was just an anomaly this year. And we don't have the ability to stop the flooding because we don't even have a structural engineer that can help us determine, and is it just with this historic district? Or, I mean, I'm at a loss to figure out how we're doing this. We got a downtown that floods, and do we live with this? I mean, sounds like Louisiana in the 20s. I'm flummoxed.
Well, the criteria, most of the criteria is in chapter 26, section 8.1, and I believe it's section 16.5 or 2, I can't remember. With the reorganization of the code, I don't have it memorized anymore verbatim, but it talks about the repair and maintenance and the demolition and those requirements. It is actually in the land development regulations. But as far as flooding downtown, that's that's not something our
But I mean,
planning
in a
staff or
geographic
zoning.
sense, downtown, the historic district, it's kind of
Right,
one and the same.
and so when a structure's listed on the National Register District and in the local register district and on a Florida Master Site file, then these are the steps we
stuck.
take
Yeah.
to preserve our historic district and our historic structures. It's also part of our comprehensive plan for the city of Punta Gorda. We have a historic element, and part of that historic element's goals, objectives, and policies are to preserve our historic districts, our historic areas, and our historic structures. So that's why these processes are in place to give our advisory boards and our council the ability to either say, okay, yeah, it can be tore down, or no, we are going to abate that, and when it's listed, and it's a contributing structure, and it's listed, or it's within the district, you can abate that or put a hold on that certificate of appropriateness for demolition for up to 18 months. And therefore, they can reach out to see if somebody wants to take and restore the structure, move the structure, which we've had done numerous times. There was one across from City Hall about 7 or 8 years ago, 10 years ago maybe, if it's even been 10, a little yellow house. Moved it over on, just off of Virginia on Harvey Street, and that was like the third or fourth house that couple restored and moved and brought it back, and it's kept its historic integrity. And that's the whole purpose of the 18-month abatement when it comes to either a contributing structure or something that's inside the district.
And some of you may want to go back to an email from Brittany Metzler, which gave us a link to, I think it's a federal government site that deals with historic structures, and it talks about, Steve, all the alternatives. There are alternatives to demolition, such as moving the property, taking the property and grading it so that it's raised higher. There's lots of alternatives other than demolition, and I do think that you may want to take a look at that, so when we have more of these coming before us, you can look at some of those examples of alternatives that might be available to simply demolishing the property.
You can apply right now. There is a grant that the city is going for that is supported by FEMA, and that's for either, it's for raising the structures. And they say they can even do it on concrete on slab, not just, if it house was on stilts. The problem with that, and anyone can sign up for this right now, because the more people that you have from the neighborhood sign up for this, the likelier we're going to get that grant. And at first, it was 75% for FEMA to pay and 25% for the homeowner to pay, so there's skin in the game. Now it looks like it might be 90% for FEMA and 10% of the homeowner. The problem with the grant at this time, and this is, we're talking about people making huge financial decisions, is that probably won't be, if we get it, that probably we're looking between 2 to 4 years of actually getting that money. So in the meantime, you have these problems. But there are things out there. That's true. There are. And when I talked about criteria, I wasn't talking about the criteria for rebuild or demo. I was talking about the criteria for buildings coming on and off the list. That's what concerns me. So if anyone, we could solve a problem, if anyone that is on the list and doesn't want to be, can ask to be taken off, and the ones that got took off and want to be on can ask to be put on. That we can do fast, right? Because we don't have to get into the criteria of how they came on and off. They were on, now they're off. They weren't on, now they're on. So that's a little different discussion for me, because as Lisa said, what you can do with contributing structures or national listed structures and all that, there's different things that you can and cannot do, and that is in the land development regulations under Chapter 26, correct?
As far as I know,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
So,
All right, so why don't we continue on with our agenda? I think we've pretty much aired our concerns about this, so 2B, I guess we're on right now.
So this is certificate of appropriateness, 28-2024, 111 Chastain Street. Again, a demolition application. To remove the entire structure, carport, and concrete slab. It was constructed in 1951. Mason vernacular, single-family home. It is a non-contributing structure, but it is within the historic district. It was not deemed eligible for the National Register, was to be considered independently, and the structure was deemed ineligible for the local Register of Important Sites. This came off the survey that was done many years ago before me from an independent surveyor. This is our archive files from the National Register District. Again, the structural engineer report has not been submitted, just the professional opinion letter. Since it is in the historic district, staff was recommending denial. and at least a minimum of a 45-day hold on the demolition permit. Just something interesting that I found while I was trying to look things up on this one. We had a revitalization board back in the early 2000s. Ms. Good knows about that. This little property was given a revitalization award in 2006 for revitalizing it back to its historic structure, or historic nature. So we're just recommending denial of the certificate of appropriateness. Again, you all have the ability to table it until you get the required documentation. These two came in together, so we were directed to move forward with bringing them to HPAB.
Questions or additional discussion beyond what we've...
They're both built in 1951. They're the same year of build. They're a little different look, and that's because some changes were made to 111, and there were some additions to 359. So properties can change over time and still keep, still be contributing structures, but they were both the same thing, built in 1951, concrete on slab. I believe I'm correct on that. I did look at 111 when it was for sale last year. I've been in that house. I think we have to go with the same. That would be my opinion here, is because of, our discussions that we're talking apples and apples, really, here in these two properties also.
Other questions or comments? Does someone want to make a motion on the issue of tabling?
Can I just ask another question? So if you table this, what happens next? I just kind of want to know. So now it's going to go to back to the council, or you're just going to wait for that engineer's letter? Is that, and then we provide it to your office?
When they're tabling it with the condition that they're not going to review it or hear it until, or consider it until you get the application completed.
All right, I just wanted to be clear. That's
Yes.
what I thought. I want to be clear.
Yeah, so the sooner you get that engineer's report,
Exactly.
the sooner it's going to move on. And if that was me, that'll save you a lot of heartache.
I understand.
Other comments, thoughts? Someone want to make a motion here again? As the chair, I can't make a motion. You have to make the motion.
I'll move that we table the demolition application, the certificate of appropriateness for demolition for 111 Chastain Street until we have an engineer's report.
I second the motion.
All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. All right. Moving on now to 422 East Ann Street.
Good morning. My name is Rachel Berry. I'm the new zoning official.
Could you say your name again, please? I couldn't quite hear.
My name is Rachel Berry.
Rachel Berry. Rachel, welcome.
I haven't met most of you, but I look forward to it and look forward to working with you all. Agenda item 2C is a certificate of appropriateness, CA 29-2024. This is for door replacements at 422 East Ann Street, which is a one-story duplex built in 1960, which was a craftsman-like style. It is listed as having historical value on the local register and the Florida Master Site file. The property owner is requesting to replace 4 doors, 3 of which are visible from the street, and so the code requires that this request come before you all for your recommendation on the certificate of appropriateness. And staff would recommend approval of the door replacement.
Any questions or comments? Does anyone want to make a...
I'll make a motion that we approve the certificate of appropriateness for 422 Ann Street.
I'll second.
We have it seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it.
Thank you.
And I think we have one more for information only. Okay. I think that's probably you, Rachel, again.
All All right, so from my understanding, this is just an information item. It was a garage door replacement, and so it is just coming before you all as an information item and no action is required.
Can you give us a little bit of a discussion of it? I think typically we've had an overview of it. I know we have it in our packet, but as, for the public that might not have reviewed it.
All right, so this is certificate of CA 26-2024. The address is 413 West Retta Esplanade. The applicant proposed replacing 2 existing garage doors on the side of the primary structure, which are visible from the right-of-way. The garage doors are to be replaced with matching doors. The home was constructed in 1895 as a 2-story Queen Anne single-family house and is listed on the local register. So a certificate of appropriateness is required, and staff approved the application, and it is consistent with the character of the subject structure.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, comments? All righty, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think we move on next to staff comments. Are there any staff comments? It's our general business. We've already heard from the murals. It's our staff comments first, and then we'll hear member comments, Jim. Staff comments. Any at this time? All right, member comments.
I'm wondering, as we make decisions here based on the excessive amount of flooding that's occurring in the community, and we're making assumptions going forward that the flooding will continue, do we need guidelines to understand at what level we shouldn't be making the expectation or the prediction that next year we're going to have catastrophic floods, therefore properties can be demolished because they're going to be continually problematic? Who provides us with the guidelines that we use to establish what the expectation should be, or what the set of assumptions are going forward that we're basically making our planning decisions?
I think some of it, of course, Jim, would come if we actually did have an engineer structural analysis. In part, they would probably address the current situation of the property and then also give us their professional opinion as engineers regarding the longer term. I think that is part of why the structural analysis is important, because I'm not an engineer. I don't think anybody else here is an engineer, so part of it is to get that information from an expert who could give us that. But I think you're right. None of us can predict the weather. If we did, we'd all, you'd all have that umbrella on the rainy day. But I mean, I think part of it is that we're going to have to wait and look to the opinions of the experts on perhaps the future of the property, which may or may not appear in the engineer's report.
How do we evaluate the consistency of the predictions of the experts? Because I'm sure that you get 3 different experts and they're going to have different views of what the future holds.
I think a lot of it is we're going to have to make decisions based on what is presented to us.
Okay.
And that we can't put any kind of assumption in there or create any facts that we think, even if we believe strongly in them. So I think we're going to have to kind of say to ourselves, we're going to have to have somewhat of a narrow vision, which is when we do get these applications in, look at the materials that are provided, including the engineer's report, because we can only make our decisions based on the things that are put in here into the record.
Okay.
So I think part of it is that, yeah, we're going to have to try to put any kind of biases we have one way or the other about climate change and other issues, and just look at what are the experts advising us.
Well, and also I think when you're talking about demo of contributing structures, requests for demo, I was chair of preservation before and after Hurricane Charlie. So we saw a lot of this go on with the same concerns. These are people's biggest assets. We've got to be cognizant of that. We have to be fair to everybody. Mm-hmm. As Lisa brought up, there was a couple that restored 15 homes, moved a lot of them, and restored them. So the ideas people are going to come up with and the opportunities are just now happening. And I'm not saying that's right for everybody, but it did work then. We lost homes, and we can only recommend denial of a demo for these. City council can do whatever they want. We're just recommending. Mm-hmm. So I want to make that clear, is that that's our job. It's their job to deny or not deny, or to hold it up, to find someone. We found people that wanted to take homes, and we found lots for them to put the homes on. The city and the boards, we did that. And so it's possible. I mean, people aren't really out in the cold. It's just, the decisions are hard.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know what else to say about that. It's going to be tough.
Yes, it'll be challenging, and even if we have decisions that people don't like, we understand the situations that people are going through.
Right.
But we are indeed bound by the ordinances of the city, and I think if you want to go back and look at, I'm not sure what exact number it is, but it does lay out what our mission is as the Historic Preservation Advisory Board. And one of our key missions is to preserve the history of our city.
Right.
So we have to keep that in mind. And the city council may overturn us, as they are welcome to do, because they are an independent body and they make their own decisions as well. But remember, our focus is on trying to keep as much of historic Punta Gorda in place as is reasonable, as is possible under the circumstances. So take a look at that, folks, with this whole mission statement that they have. It's part of, I think, our bylaws. Take a look at that, because that may be a good way for all of us to kind of refresh our memories from when we first joined the board, and to think about what our perspective should be in analyzing these various applications. And they are going to be hard. And it's not going to be, if it was easy, anybody could do it, right? But it's going to be hard, so just recognize that.
Well said.
Other comments, questions? Someone make a motion to, go ahead, Jim. Steve, sorry.
I don't know if this is kind of general business.
Well, it's member comments, so you can go.
Yeah, okay. I've been trying to, we now have an area, and it's outside of the district, I'm sure, where the historic park is. We've got the historic park, we've got the library, now we got Hounds on Henry, and we have the new Wildlife Center. Unfortunately, this plot of land is both controlled by the city and the county. I kind of like to look at it as historical tourism. I mean, that's why we have the preserving the homes, etc. I would like to see, and I don't know if it's possible, and please, if somebody can direct me in the right way, because I've been to 4 agencies and I haven't figured it out, to interconnect all 4 areas with walking trails, etc., so that it becomes cohesive in one. I've gone to look at the plats. I can't find a plat of what's being worked on. And is there a way that we can put this together so that it comes out as a historic tourist destination where all of these can be connected?
Well, there is already some effort to make it part of tourism. I think Beth might be able to speak to the American cruise lines and.
Right, it's growing, and we know it. And I'd like to have something, I'd like to see a plan to interconnect all 4 walking trails, et cetera, before all this construction is completed. Then we've got another problem. So now is the time to do it.
Beth, why don't you chime in, and then David Perry would like to say a few words.
Beth Magnan. I'm president of the Punta Gorda Historical Society, and I'm pleased to report that the American Cruise Line that came this past January through March, bringing lots of passengers to see our lovely city, they have agreed to bring an excursion to the History Park, to our Artisans Village in History Park. And that starts this first Friday after Thanksgiving. And they will be coming with not 1, but 2 ships through February, and then it'll pare down to 1. So we're very, very excited to showcase our Artisans Village and History Park, and I think it's just going with what Steve Valdez said. We've got a great opportunity to connect all of these entities for a visitor's mecca, and I'll leave it at that.
David Perry.
David Perry. And Steve, I agree with you. We're building, I think the city appropriated $1 million for a bathroom for the, which is expensive bathroom in my opinion. But for the,
Pork.
no, the Wildlife Center, excuse me, yeah. And so there should have been some thought process to connect all this so that all the people could have used that bathroom instead of just the Wildlife Center. And have some trail connectivity that also connects it to the lineal path. That's planning, but I don't know if that's been done. And Lisa, you're probably gonna jump in on that.
I'm going to jump in, Lisa Hannum, Planning Director. So the bathrooms, the independent bathrooms are not just for the Wildlife Center. The Wildlife Center will have their own internal bathrooms for their customers. The bathroom facility, our senior project manager has been working on. It's a capital improvement project. And if there are any more trails or pathways that are required, again, that would be a capital improvement project that would have to be voted on at council, added to the budget. It could be part of our sales tax, depending on what it is. So those are things that are coming up that you'll probably want to work with the city manager's office as well as your city council members to say what kind of priorities you want for some of these capital improvement
So
projects.
if I understand what you're saying, there is no plan to connect the
No,
library,
I
the history
believe
park.
that there was a plan as part of Peace River Wildlife. There was a plan, I don't have them in front of me. It's been months since I had to review the plans since they're already under construction. I look at so much, I don't remember.
So you're the person.
No, I'm not the person, because tomorrow's my last day. I'm moving. But I believe there was a plan as part of the Wildlife Center to connect from from the parking lot that they are constructing for the city to be used for the Wildlife Center and Hounds on Henry. I believe there was a pedestrian walkway connection that would tie into our linear path system over there. But I don't know about connecting to the history park or to the library. I honestly don't know that. So, but it's always possible. It should be in our urban design office or in our zoning office. We should be able to pull the plans.
Can't find them, I've been to both.
All right, well, other comments, questions? Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
David Perry will make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you all for coming today and for insightful discussion.
Thank God I hate to say it, but thank God we've got an attorney